Chapter 23, Pasuk Aleph, Parashat Gimel, Pasuk Aleph. You have it, Moshe? Well, you'll read the Rashi. I'll read the Pasuk. A man is not allowed to marry his father's wife. Obviously, while his father is married to her, he can't marry her. But even after his father dies, he cannot marry her. There's only actually one erva, one prohibited relationship that becomes permitted after death. Do you know what that is, Moshe? There's only there's one relationship that's prohibited while they're alive, which becomes permitted after death. Well, Yibum is a little bit is a good answer, but it's Yibum is not the answer because you are correct that that's technically speaking correct. But Yibum is an example where it's a mitzvah to marry your brother's wife, but if it's not in the context of Yibum, then it's going to be a kares penalty. Your brother's wife if he divorced her. But there's one that becomes permitted with death, and that is your wife's sister. Your wife's sister. And while she's alive, you're not allowed to marry your wife's sister while your wife is alive. And let's say one divorces his wife, can't marry her sister. But if your wife would die, then you're allowed to marry her sister. There's a prime minister of Israel whose wife died and then he married her sister. Anybody know who that is? That would be Ariel Sharon. Okay, so Lo Yikach Ish et Eshet Aviv is not allowed to marry the wife of his father, but Lo Yigaleh Kinaf Aviv. So he does not uncover the robe of his father. Okay, let's look at the Rashi here, Moshe.
Lo Yikach Ein Lo Bali Kuchen.
Ein Lo Bali Kuchen. He's not. It's meaning to say Lo Yikach. Yikach implies betrothal, kedushin. So Ein Lo Bali Kuchen, that their marriage will not take effect. Ein Kedushin Tov Simba. Let's say he says to her, I hereby betroth you with this ring. It does not take effect. Just like, let's say, a person tries to marry a tree or a cow. By Jewish law, it's not a marriage. So too, if you try to marry your father's wife, it will not take effect. Okay, go on.
So marries Yavam Shal Aviv Haruya Aviv.
So it comes to include not only are you not allowed to marry your father's wife, but there's another prohibition, something called Shomeres Yavim Shal Aviv. Hello, Aryeh. You know Moshe? You must know Moshe, right?
Of course.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. So the Shomeres Yavim of one's father. What's a Shomer? How's your foot?
It's good. I just twisted it, thinking like an X-ray and a brace.
How'd you twist it? Horseback riding?
Just tripped off a step.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Shomeres Yavam is basically, let's say, Reuben has a father. His father's name is Yaakov, and Yaakov has a brother, and Yaakov's brother dies without any children. So Yaakov's brother, let's call him Esav, just for the sake of saying an example. So Esav's wife falls to Yibum with Yaakov, but until such time as Yaakov does either Yibum or Chalitza, either marries her or gives her this act of separation called Chalitza, she's called a Shomeres Yavam. So what Rashi is telling us here is that this is what it's telling us. You're not allowed to uncover the robe of your father, meaning to say Shomeres Yavim Shal Aviv. That you're not even allowed to marry a woman who fell to Yibum with one's father, meaning to say not only cannot marry his father, but even a woman who was in this quasi relationship. Okay, go on. She was basically somebody who was kind of betrothed, but not really to your father. Go on. So then Rashi says, but wait 1 second. Why does the Torah have to give us a prohibition? There's already a separate prohibition that you're not allowed to marry this woman. Why? Because she's your father's brother's wife. And that the Torah already told us in Parashas Achrei Mos that you're not allowed to marry your father's brother's wife. So your father's, so the woman who falls to Yibum with your father is obviously also your father's brother's wife. So why does the Torah need to say it twice? So go on. Okay, so it's to tell us that if you do this, you're going to be in violation of two prohibitions. One is right here, and then the second one is also that you're not allowed to marry your father's wife. Go on. Okay, let's go slowly here. So it says, and why is it next to the passage in the next passage in the Torah, which is about you're not allowed to marry a mamzer. So it's not actually the next passage, it's two psukim away. It says you can't marry a mamzer. It's to tell us Lamed she'ein mamzer is to teach us that who is a mamzer? Mamzer is only somebody who comes from a relationship, michayve krisus, where if the man and the woman were together, they would get the penalty of kares. So under those circumstances, the offspring is a mamzer. Meaning to say, let's say a man and a woman have a child and they're not married to each other. That does not create a mamzer because the penalty for even though that's a prohibition, the penalty is not for that is not going to create a mamzer. So,
Rabbi, other than incest and adultery, what else is there that would be kares related that could create somebody to be a mamzer?
well, it's other than incest and adultery. Well, that's those are the things.
I was going to say the opposite. Adultery is mitat bedin of chenek. There's no karet. We had a mamzer born in our community because the woman was married, but as far as I remember, there's no karet. There's a mitat bedin of chenek.
Hold on 1 second. Well, Rashi here says, V'kal v'chomer, Rashi continues, Mechayve misos bezdin, she'em ba arayos misos bezdin, and she'em ba arayos misos bezdin, she'em ba kares, meaning to say, let me just first say, if the woman is a nida, it is a kares penalty, but that does not create a mamzer. But what they're saying here, no. So Rashi says right here, Rabbi Yosef, not like what you're saying. Rashi says, "V'kav chomer v'chayvai misos bezin." If there's a penalty for which, if one had done it with witnesses, there would have been put to death. But now that there are no witnesses, so they're not put to death. She'em ba'arayos misos bezdin, she'em ba'kares. So basically, those penalties, which if they had been done with the witnesses, they'd be put to death. So the Gemara in Yevamos tells us that they get kares. So they would also make a mamzer under those circumstances. That's what Rashi is saying. But now, okay, next pasuk. Okay, this is lo yavo petzua daka ukrus shafcha bekahal Hashem. A person who has petzua daka or a krus shafcha, we'll have to see what that is not allowed to enter into the community of Hashem. What does that mean? You're not allowed to marry somebody like that. What does that mean? Moshe, when we read the Rashi, petzua daka, what is that? Basically, what's going on here is if his testicles were injured or crushed, basically he did this. Now it's so such a person is not allowed to marry into the community of Hashem. You're not allowed to get married. So ukrus shavcha shenichras hagid. If he cut off his male member, v'shuv eno yorek zera, so he's no longer able to basically produce seed, so he's not allowed to get married. I guess I'd have to look up what the Rambam says about this, but probably this was something that they worshipped the pagan gods around that they worshipped in those cases. We have to see what the halacha is about this today. A lot of times people need to do something for medical purposes, obviously. That's going to be permitted. Yeah. Are you?
And it just happened naturally, but out of accidents, whatever.
Yeah. So we have to refresh ourselves. What is the halachos? All the halachos of Petzua Daka and Krus Shavcha. Let me see. Since you're asking, we'll usually focus on it. But since you're asking, let me pull up this pasuk. Let me see what the Shavcha is here.
Wish I had my chayenu on me.
What?
I wish I had my chayenu on me.
Oh, where's your chayim? Bring it tomorrow.
Forgot it.
What?
Forgot it.
I got it. Yeah. Let's see. I need to get one of those too. Have you ever been to the OL, Moshe? I went to the OL on Monday morning for Nate's. It was so geschmack, so beautiful.
Should be going tomorrow.
Oh, you're going?
You know Noah Florman?
Yeah.
It's his wedding tomorrow.
So you're going to go to the OL tomorrow?
Well, yeah, it's what hopefully it'll stop him.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Have you been there? The OL is the Rebbe's kever. So I went there Monday morning and I davened there and I loved it. At the Nate's, I went there in the morning. They have a minyan every day there at 7:30. I would definitely recommend people. Okay, what's the pasuk here? Chapter Parachav Gimel pasuk Gimel. Let me just see if they tell anything about here. Here. Okay. Okay, fine. So the Gemara talks about somebody who became a Petzua Daka from Shemayim, etc. So this is what the Yerushalmi and Mesechas Yevamos is asking. This Petzua Daka, this person who has the crushed testicles. So Petzua, the Gemara Yerushalmi says, this person who's crushed is Tani bidei Adam Pasal bidei Shemayim Kashers. There are those who say that if you did it by a human being, that's when you're disqualified. But from a heaven, you're still kosher to come in. Is Tani, and some are in it, Bein bidei Adam, Bein bidei Shemayim Pasal. Either way, you're disqualified. The one who says you're disqualified from a human being if you do it, but if it's from heaven, it's kosher, he learns it out from a mamzer, from the connection to a mamzer. Just like a mamzer is something that's a human action, also this is from a human action. And the one who says that either way you're disqualified, it says because it says you're never going to have a Petzua Daka. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Be Rabbi, Bun, Od Hava Yoef La, Mamzer, Lo Yavo Mamzer, Lo Yavo Petzua Daka. Just like a mamzer is from heaven, Petzua Daka b'dei Shemayim. Well, it's a strange phrase, but so Rashi the Yevamos writes that Petzua Daka from heaven comes through like cold or baby you're born that way. But the Rambam says explicitly that all of these disqualifications is where it was not from heaven. If a person did it, or some other way, but if he's born that way, then, or he got sick, then such a person is kosher to come into the community. So that directly answers your question. What about if you have to do a prostate surgery? So the Chazon Ish says about that. He goes into it, but we don't need to go. Rahman al-Tan, if a person has those situations, they know that it's a very important shaila to go into, and we don't need to do it now. Okay, but that answers your question, Aryesh. And a good question. Well, Yavo Mamzer B'Kal Hashem. A Mamzer is not allowed to marry into the community of Hashem. Gam Dor Asiri or Yavo B'Kal Hashem. Or Yavo Mamzer B'Kal Hashem. A Mamzer cannot come into the community of Hashem. Gam Dor Asiri or Yavo B'Kal Hashem. A Mamzer is not allowed to come into the community. Also, the 10th generation cannot come into the community of Hashem. Meaning to say, even after 10 generations, the mamzer is not allowed to marry into the Jewish people. What does it mean? Oyavo mamzer b'kal Hashem. Okay, you read that, Moshe? With Rashi? He's not allowed to marry a Jewish woman. By the way, so what's the definition of a mamzer? It's like one of the most classic cases is incest. Anybody know an example of incest in the Torah?
Lot's daughters.
Lot's daughters. Lot's daughters. And what were their names? What do they name the well, Lot's daughters, we don't know their names. It just says
I
the
don't.
oldest and the youngest. But what did they name their children? Moab?
I don't know.
No, and Ammon and Moab. But now the question is, so Moab is what? What's Moab?
From his thought.
No, but Moab is a tribe. So Moab was coming from a mamzer. He's a mamzer, right? So
You can marry a Moabi woman.
well, the book of Ruth is based upon the fact that Ruth was a Moabite, and she was not, because the Torah has another prohibition that we're about to get to. An Ammonite and a Moabite cannot come into the community even until 10 generations. But a mamzer is never allowed to come in. So Ruth was a descendant of, she was from Moab. She was a mamzer then. She was a mamzeres. So separate from the prohibition of being a Moabitess, which the Gemara says didn't apply, although there was a lot of debate about it at the time. She should have not been allowed because she was a Moabite, because she was a mamzeres.
But isn't it?
And who comes from Ruth?
I don't know.
So how can
Generations. So
if you count in the Tanakh from Ruth, from Lot's daughters to David HaMelech, you're going to you count 10 generations. Actually, if you count 10 generations.
but how were they allowed to marry?
Yeah. Right, because it's a mamzer. So that's a question I've always been wondering about. Because the mamzer you can't marry, so they must have. I don't know.
But because they didn't have our perception of halacha, they could have married any other nation and get mixed, meaning that it wouldn't be purely all Moabites or mamzers forever. If a Moabite married
So you're saying
like
Ruth was not a Moabite?
Midianite. No, she was a Moabite, but just because her father was king of Moab or whatever, doesn't mean that her lineage was pure all the way back to Lot, that it was always a Moabite with a Moabite and a Moabite and a Moabite. Like,
But even one of them would, if you're saying if there was even one back, one person from each union, that would make her a mamzeres.
but Rashi said that the Israelites. So I'm saying if once a Moabite married somebody who's not a Israelite, then it sort of stops there. Sort of, not. I'm saying,
I don't know. I think I don't know, because
or
basically,
maybe
if there's one Moabite in that
maybe-
union, then it's no, that you can't. There's one Moabite in that union. It should have been a mamzeres. Okay. Anyway,
what about the fact that it was before the Torah was given? Not Ruth, but Lot's daughters, because there's also
so
Yehuda
then-
and Tamar, and there's also Yaakov married two sisters while they were still alive, both of them, and there's others. So
I mean, it's
the only possible explanation is that it was before Torah.
I don't know. That's not the only possible answer. We have to look into it. That's what I'm saying. It's not. It's a question I have, but there's multiple possible answers probably. So that's one answer. It's a good answer. Maybe they weren't mamzerim because it was before the Torah. That's what we'd have to say.
makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, but maybe let's see what they say. Okay, the next pasuk says. Hold on one second. What does the next pasuk say? Well, yavo amoni u'moavi b'kahal Hashem. Hold on one second. Hold on. Oh, Yavo Ammoni u'Moavi b'kal Hashem, and Ammonite and Moabite cannot come into the community of Hashem. Gam Dora Asiri lo Yavo Lahem b'kal Hashem ad olam. Even until 10 generations, they cannot marry. So, what does this pasuk tell us? Rashi, what does Rashi say, Moshe?
Lo Israelis.
Oh, Isa, same idea. They cannot marry Israelite woman. But this is a little bit difficult because the previous one says he can't marry a Yisraelis, but a mamzer is not just. We have a question on the previous Rashi. Ammonite or Moabite is a woman is allowed to marry an Israelite man, but a mamzeres, oh Harold, but a mamzeres cannot. So why does Rashi just say lo yisa Yisraelis? It can also mean Well, you say Yisrael, oh Yisraelis, can't marry a man or a woman. So that's a little bit of a tricky thing.
Well, a mamzer is a man. A mamzer is
Yeah, but
mamzer is.
but there's a prohibition against the mamzeres also. So we assume that when it says mamzer, it also refers to a mamzeres.
With the lesson of the pasuk is.
Yeah, but in general, when the Torah is not specific, we assume that it refers to man and a woman. And everybody interprets the pasuk that way. It's referring to both a man or a woman. So
Rabbi,
yeah.
Actually, Steinsaltz comments exactly on root, and what he's saying. What he says
Okay.
is the prohibition only applies to male Moabites and Ammonites. Female converts from Moab and Ammon are permitted to marry Israelite men of unflawed lineage.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know if it was the 10 generations or that
No,
it just
that they're running because of the fact the Gemara derives that very good. Shkoyach. Gemara derives that because the pasuk is about to tell us that the Ammonite and Moabites cannot come in because they didn't bring out bread and water. So the sin was on the Ammonite and Moabite men, and therefore the women are allowed to marry in. But I don't know. It's a question I have here. I'll cut you off, Harold.
And isn't it more of a commentary on the parent because the children are innocent? They don't have no choice in who their parents are.
Yeah. But the Torah actually believes that children are responsible. Not that the children are responsible. I don't think that's a fair way to say it, although the pasuk does say explicitly the children are responsible, and it's only rabbinic law that says, hey, when they have the sin of their fathers in there, when they continue on the sins. But Torah understands that that if the culture is rotten and the children really can't be saved, basically. It's antithetical to what we believe today. We believe like innocent children, etc. But that's not the way the Torah approaches it. It's not the way the Torah approaches it, Alan. But on the other hand, I would say that the Torah is filled, even though that's the halacha, the Torah is filled with examples of children who. So there's two things. There's the law, and then what are all these examples in the Torah which cut against that? So, for example, David HaMelech comes from a Moabite, and let's give Moabite woman, but still, even
Moabite convert.
I'm just saying the point is that he comes from a Moabite who we're talking about the culture is so bad. But not only that, like let me see, other classic examples of this in the Torah is let me just think of other examples there. So obviously, that Aaron's that Eliezer Cohen is a descendant of a Midianite, of Yisro. So this is it was a Cohen Midian. So I mean, the Gemara clearly knows that the descendants of these wicked people converted and became great scholars. It says the descendants of Haman studied Torah and Bnei Brak, the descendants of
Bnei Brak rabbis. They were all either Kohanim or converts.
Yeah, they were. That's what the Gemara says. That Rabbi Meir came from Titus. So this is the examples of that. Okay, so now it says, what's the reason? Al davar asher lo kidmu eschem b'lechem u'mayim, because they didn't bring you out bread and water, b'derech on the path, b'tzeizchem mitzrayim, when you left Egypt, v'asher sachar lecha es Bilam ben Beor. They hired upon you Bilam ben Beor miptor aram naraim l'kalecha. So they give two sins. What were the two sins? One, that they didn't come before you for bread and water, and number two is that they hired Bilam ben Beor from Aram Naraim to curse you. So let's look at Rashi Moshe.
And Advar, 8 star. So Ya'atu Eschem Lachi Lachat Yacham Ab Yichsev Idvar Bilam.
Okay, so because our Eitza Sheyatzu Eslem Tiachem, on account of the counsel that they advised you to cause you to sin. So what did they hire Bilam to do? That Bilam gave this counsel that he said the Midianite women should seduce the Jewish men. So that because of that, you're not allowed to marry him. But derech, when they came upon you on the road,
Usually, he's
B'teruf, when you were disoriented, they came upon you on the road and they didn't bring you bread and water. So that's their punishment. But the Amalekites also attacked them on the road. So the Ammonites and Moabites didn't attack, but they didn't help. So the Gemara says elsewhere that the way you can recognize a descendant of Abraham, how can you recognize? If they have three things. That they are, maybe Rabbi Yosef could pull it up, Rachmanim, Baishanim, and Gomel Chasadim. The descendants of Abraham are people who are compassionate, humble, and act with kindness. And so the Ammonites and Moabites, they didn't know the basic idea of hospitality, of giving bread and water, and so therefore we don't want them part of our people. That's what the Rashi is telling us. That's what the Torah is telling us. We don't want you part of our genetic pool if you have this predisposition to not being kind. That's the most important thing. We don't care about their IQ. We don't care about their wealth. We care about if they're kind. It's the most important quality to be a Jew. So you can tell if somebody's part of the Jewish people by whether or not they have those qualities. That's where is that Gemara? Maybe Rabbi Yosef pull it up. Okay, we have to stop here to daven mincha. It's time.
Kala Rabati.
What'd you say?
Maseret Kala Rabati.
No, it's in the actual Gemara. It's in an actual Gemara.
Not according to Sefaria.
We'll find it.
Midrash. I thought it's in Avot, but
No, it's in one of the Babas. We'll find it. Shkoyach.
okay.
Shkoyach. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.